Man, I've been following you for such a long time now, and I love the evolution of the beard, how it gets glorious and glorious.
Well, it's funny because the beard definitely has changed throughout the existence of our like podcasts and stuff. Like, yeah, and I'm the type of person where the sort of the beard does the thinking for me. It's like randomly it'll just be completely gone, and I come in and Dalton's like, "Whoa, what is going on?"
Now you have to think, and that's hard.
Yeah.
It's like have you heard about that story about McGill he went to like a presentation or whatever, and he showed up, he had a shaved mustache. And people were like, we came all the way from whatever just to see the mustache.
I don't even know if I would recognize him without the mustache.
So I
It's
think it's
so
the same
iconic.
thing. Yeah, right? I think it's
Yeah.
the same thing for you.
Yeah.
I remember when I was listening to the podcast, it was just like Dalton was introducing you with my bearded friend.
It's great. It's a little weird like wearing masks and stuff, and that's why I trimmed this mask is getting annoying, but once it got past the actual length of the mask, then it was good. Wasn't uncomfortable. So I think I just need to let it go even more.
Dude, you should, man. That's for sure a record for the PT books, man.
Yeah. I'll have to check with the official record holders.
Would you mind? Oh man, I would think it would be great, dude. That's something like that was weird at first, right? Like last year before or in 2019, I had a big beard, and like when I shaved it, same thing. People were like, "What the hell is going on?" But
That's awesome.
It's something that people recognize you with.
It's true. It becomes like for me, it's become a bit of an identity, and it's like a little bit of a conversation starter sometimes.
Dude, I'm guilty of it right now.
You know how it is. Like we're working with people all the time. You got to have like something. I'll wear like weird socks or something, just to like have something to get a good conversation going.
It's such a cool way to think about this. I'm pumped that like you're bringing this up because when you meet someone for the first time, like what's the best icebreaker? Beard or socks, or if you have enough like not caring factor of what you wear, it's so easy to like, oh, you see, I got a hole on my shirt or whatever.
It's so true. Like I felt a little bit weird about it when we were in school because there was always this idea of like, we have to be professional. We have to dress a certain way. We have to like look a certain way. But I always saw it as like sort of the opposite. It's like not that I want to look like horrible, but it's like, I like the idea that I'm not this like perfect, like completely clean cut, like almost like unattainable person. I want people to be able to relate to me. And I think that those like individual characteristics help people relate to you.
I love that, man. Do you think, okay, so question for you, when you shaved it off, did you lose that charm a bit of like relation with people when you shaved off the beard?
When I shaved, did it change? Like,
yeah, a bit.
Not really, like cause I still like I said, like I wear like Converse shoes at work. Like I've never been like one to try to like be fancy and stuff. So there's always like, and I'll wear like, I have these socks that my wife got me for Christmas, and they have my cat on them, So like, I'm always like, you got to keep it interesting, right? Like, especially because like people are coming in here, and oftentimes it's not a great spot that they're in, and it can be like a down kind of time. So I'm always like, how can I just like be a fun part of their life,
Yeah, I like that because it's like we never, and everyone like I'm sure for you, like your experience with going in for rehab, you're like, oh, I got to do rehab. And then you have someone fun showing up to the door and be like, hey, let's have fun. I have a big beard. I have funny socks. Let's party.
Exactly. You know, and it's like, we're just people. I think at the end of the day, like that's that's all I think is that important. Or, you know, obviously there's other aspects that are important, but like that's the most important thing is just being real with people. And that's something that like I think is missing sometimes.
Do you feel like it's since you transitioned from school to now? Do you feel like it that factor is missing even more day to day basis?
I don't know, you know, like it was really like I felt like when I was in school, just like going to physio clinics, I wasn't inspired. I was like honestly at the point where I'm like, is this even like, do I even want to do this? You know, just being real. Like that's how I felt. But and I think that's a huge part of it because it just felt the environments feel so forced. They feels way too clinical, you know? And I'm like, is that how it should be when, you know, we don't want people to be stuck in the system. You know, we want people to envision how they can thrive in their lives. It's like that's sort of that's how we've tried to view it in our space. It's like we want people to come in here and be like, oh, like I can get back to CrossFit, like I can get back to weightlifting, you know, look at this place. Or like just feel inspired.
It's like that Goodwill Hunting like vibe of like creating trust, man.
Yeah, exactly. You know?
Oh, I love this, man. I definitely need to make them like when all those restrictions are less heavy. I definitely need to go check it out.
Oh, 100%, man. We'd love to have you down here. It'd be fun. Like there's the spot that we're into is so awesome. Like within like a 2-minute walk, there's like escarpment trails where you can go hiking, like Bruce Trail.
Wow.
It's just like a cool the spot Dundas is in like a valley,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a really incredible place with like everybody's active. Like there's people like you sit in our, you know how our space has those huge windows.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like you sit there for like 20 minutes, you're gonna see people running by, people biking by, like who knows what else, right?
It's so cool because like I've recently had added another day to another clinic, and it's so different the vibe because right now like I have my official space or my primary space in the CrossFit gym. Now people are coming in and we do rehab with them in the gym, which is like so much more easier to get people in or buy in into compared to the clinic, the other clinic I work once a week. It's just a traditional clinic that like we're moving into another space. That space is moving now and expanding with a gym, but it's still like it's gonna be super exciting to have a gym or a facility to invite people to like, okay, this is what you got to do.
It's so awesome, like when that's your working environment, you know, and that's inspiring. Like that's like, oh, I actually like being at work. You know, I'm not like kind of dreading like going into this place, and you sort of feel like your job is sort of fractioned, if that makes sense. Like it's not fully like encompassing like what
Because
you feel is health, you know?
that's one thing I had a trouble with at school. It was just like massage therapy was just more general and the set of a room, no access to fitness or space. And I don't know if it was the same for you, but when I was thinking of either going to physio or massage school, it was a very traditional clinic with a small rehab space. And I was like, this is not inviting people to move. Like they're on a conveyor belt moving to the better beds closer to the rehab space or moving away from the rehab space.
Oh yeah, I think there's something like symbolic too about just like even if you're getting a massage, you know, and the doors are closed and everything. Like we have a massage therapist, but like, you know, you hear the sounds of like the gym, right? You're like, you can pop out at the end of the session and like get some work done. It just, yeah, it's way more like, yeah, motivating for the person. And again, like it's that thing where like the proximity, like they're right there. They're going to be seeing it. Uh, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, And it's inviting. It's like the fact, I don't know how your building is, because I'm super curious to see how that is, because I think it's really cool that you have like the full-on rehab space and you're offering classes too. And I think that's what the rehab space needs, right? To some extent, of like understanding that, yeah, what we do on the table or whatever, we need to create a link to day-to-day activity. And I
Oh,
think
100%.
seeing those people running or walking outside doing activity, it's like, oh, okay, this is where I need to be. This is where the next step is.
It's cool seeing other clients too going through similar stuff, and like you're in there in the session, you're like, whoa, that person's doing like kipping pull-ups. Like, I wonder if I could do that.
Is that something you use? Like if you see a client on your on your day, and you're like, oh, okay, at the same time another person has this client, he's a bit more advanced in the injury, I'm going to bring my client to the session and like position myself to make them see that person all the time.
Oh yeah, like definitely we think about all that stuff because like it's all like trying to get this, like we know one of the biggest factors, right, for people getting better is, do they believe that they can get better? Right? Like if there's like one thing that predicts client success, that's it. Right? If someone thinks they can get better, they've just increased their chances of getting better. So like we try to story tell a lot, and explain like, hey, we have clients just like you who have gone through the same thing. They were where you are. Here's where they are now, and if you can actually show them that in action, like in the space, it's like extra cherry on top, because they're just like, oh, like I can do this. I can get there.
Nice. That. Oh man, I get chills just hearing about this. That's cool, man. Because that's that's a missing link, right? Of like seeing the progression you can get or understanding where you can be. Because
Oh, all these like environmental factors can influence people getting better so much. That's something that was like never talked about in school.
I'm so happy you bring this up, because that was the next thing I wanted to dive into. Because it's
That's
sad. It's sad, right? We are the product of our environment, and we never talk about environment in school.
yeah, it's like environment and like the context of where you're doing things. And I feel like what happened a lot when we were in school, I don't know if you can relate to this. It's like they acknowledge those things, but it was kind of just like brushed past, you know? It's like, oh yeah, and like the context, the way you deliver things, like that matters, but like here's the next technique.
I don't know for you guys, but as a PT, you have so much more knowledge than us to an extent, like with all the bit more manipulation and techniques. But for us, it was just like, all right, the context and environment is super important, but you don't need to know that for the test.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then I get the paper. I'm licensed. I could deliver whatever I've learned, and I have no idea how to deliver it.
Yeah, it's so true. And meanwhile, that like make such a huge difference. Like one of the things I love it. I got this from Greg Lehman. Do you know Greg Lehman?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, but just like the telling people like how strong their ligaments are as you're like doing a special test or something. It's like this like little thing, but you just see people get so pumped when you're like, and that's like a contextual thing, and like it's subtle, but I feel like that type of thing, um, that's what makes a big difference in like how someone vibes with you. And there's a lot of like that's what it's all those types of things that we've been able to be creative with our space, like our business to sort of be different is like all those environmental contextual things.
that is so cool, man. So what was the spark that created that space or creating that environmental changes for you guys?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it's like a spark, other than knowing we wanted people to feel a certain way when they came in. And so we work with like a graphic designer, which is really fun for me because I've grown to really like that stuff as I've like been working on our page and our podcast, and I create most of the content. So like
Oh,
I've just
cool.
got interested in that, over
Yeah,
the
yeah.
last couple of years. And so working with the designer is really fun, but they're like, how as a therapist, right, you're trying to like guide someone, right? You're trying to like know as much as you can about them, understand them as best as you can, and then uh, use that to like develop the plan, right? Same thing with the designer. So it was like very much like basically taking like a history of like who we were, right? So there's definitely some parallels there. And you're like, okay, like what is the feeling of the space going to be like? How do we bring that out? That was a really cool process.
So how was that process about? Because like you guys have the idea, how do you bring that idea to like to life, right? It's something different than creating a baby for sure. Hey, but
Definitely, it's like you basically have to break down like why you're doing what you do, like how you do it, right? Um, right? Like all those things, write them down. We thought about it for like months, so it's like really diving into who we are as like a business. And then what the designer is really good at is like turning that into the visual system, right? So like the colors are a certain way to promote a feeling, right? So with us, it's like athletic, but not intimidating, athletic, but approachable. So the colors are like colorful, but they're a little bit muted. They're not quite as like vibrant as like, like a Nike,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right? Uh, it's laid back because we like a lot of like we're inspired by a lot of like beer companies and stuff like that. So it's kind
Nice.
of like that vibe.
That's
Uh,
one thing I loved about like the photos you've been posting a lot was just like a cool, relaxed vibe of like
yeah,
progression instead of like it's still your motherfucking set type of vibe.
yeah. Exactly. But there's all kinds of things like that, and even just like the quotes that we have on the walls are very strategic. So on the one, when you come in, right, and you're just hanging out, we have this quote. It says, "Train a little and play a little." So it sort of like speaks to the personality of the space,
Yeah, 100%.
right? Like, we want to work hard, but we also want to like have fun with movement. So it's sort of like that. That's the first thing that you kind of are going to see if you're just hanging out in the space. But then you look down the hall, and as you start to walk towards like the assessment rooms, the massage room, and the gym, then it says, "Let's get you back to what you love." So that sort of leads you into the action zone,
That's so
so
cool,
to
dude.
speak. So it's things like that. That's how it kind of like actually manifests, right? Like there's all that work you put on the back end that helped the designer sort of put that into the actual way it looks and stuff.
That's so cool, man. And then like it speaks enough volume to the fact of like thinking about a strategy you want to build, right? Because you got
Mhm.
experience from like placement in school to placement like to actual work to now like owning your own space, and you just pick ideas from different space, and you're like, okay, cool. And the beauty about social media, it's like the access of to information in another space. You're like, okay, how can I take this because I really like that concept, apply it here. Wow, that's so cool, man. I love how like the strategy building starts so much behind before like the actual product.
Yeah, it's easy to see it and be like, oh, they're just like doing that. Like it seems kind of just like it comes out of nowhere. But all this stuff is very much thought out. It's stuff that I think about a lot too. Like for example, I don't know if you've seen we have those photos and it's like I got back to and it's someone holding up like a
Yeah,
card, right? Um that was I was reading a lot about like how to create a tribe, you know?
Oh, cool.
And so that was like the intention behind that is like we're definitely different, right? Like you come to our space and like it's not a traditional model, right? So the cards, it's like this is like a badge of honor. Like, and we tell our clients, like, you should be really proud to get this, you know, because you put the work in and you trusted us, even though we're different. So it's like, this is, it's like, I don't like to use the word like strategy necessarily, but it's definitely thought out, right? The intention is to show them that they're different than other people.
Yeah, and it speaks a lot of volume, right, for them of like earning their. It's like the same thing why kids keep doing karate or jiu-jitsu. It's earning their stripes.
Exactly.
I
Yeah,
think
it's like a reward.
I think it's so cool because it forces not it invites people to work hard to go back to what they want instead of like being a victim of the system.
Exactly. It starts to switch the mindset from like, you know, I need to go somewhere to get fixed to I'm in control of my health.
100%. I'm so yeah. That and that's the cool thing, right? That's the mentality and the like the door, play a little, work a little. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
train a little, play a little, and I think that's cool because like it invites people to think. Because we're so stuck, and like you could see it right now on social media, people don't think; they just repost whatever or post whatever. Now
Yeah.
that you force someone to come in, and you're like, oh, I just get it. It's not an all-in type of response. I just need to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, it's definitely been a fun process, you know.
Oh man, that's so.
It's
I love it because it's started from two dudes wanted to learn more about the field and a podcast, man.
that's it. That's all it was. And I think that's like that's I me and Dalton always just encourage people to like explore the creative side of whatever you do, you know, because you truly don't know where it's going to lead to. And I think we get too trapped into like just like every, you know, at school, everyone's like, oh, which courses are you going to take after? It's like, what about learning something different?
Mhm.
What about like how could learning about I don't even know like mindset help you in your clinical realm? You know, like explore something different.
It's something like it's a conveyor belt of system, right? Of like, okay, cool. Like now you have this this exam, that paper. Go learn dry needling. That's something super popular that a lot of my friends in massage therapy did. I think it's a cool course. First one out of the gates, probably not due to the fact that everyone does it. Like do something, and then it speaks volume to thinking laterally of what you want to provide to people.
Yeah.
What's different course you've been taking, by the way?
I haven't taken that many courses. I took Greg Lehman's course.
Oh, nice.
I took Dr. Jacob Harden's course, Prehab 101.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. And then I took recently Chris Johnson's course, bones, tendons, bells and whistles, something like that.
Yeah.
But then I just read books, listen to podcasts, you know.
It's so intense. Seeing like, for me recently, I've dove back more into like educate like CEUs this year. Took on like the skill acquisition course by Killian Hamilton, and now I'm following a mentorship with him. And like the amount of thinking I've been doing more from those conversations I've been having, it's astronomical.
Yeah, I think that's like you can get so much more out of one thing too. Like that's the thing. Like you don't need to take 1,000 courses. It's like and for me the way it's kind of cool the way like me and Dalton have sort of structured our what we do, right? Because like, for example, with the Chris Johnson course, it's like we took the course, then we had Nathan Carlson, one of the instructors, on our podcast, right? So we get to like now talk about it more. It's like I feel like I gained a lot more out of that course rather than just like taking it and then you kind of forget about it, right?
Yeah, yeah, it makes so much sense, right? Of like having that long term, like you did the course, you got the certification, and then you're able to have the instructor on it, and you could like dive into concepts or ideas you've been thinking about and applying them.
Yeah, it's like an outlet. Like, I don't know, how have you found it with like doing your podcast? Like, have you found that's helped?
It's cool, like the idea of like having the podcast, because I started with my buddy Pat, the Double Petty podcast, which was the logo was so cool. Our buddy did it, and we came in with the goal of just being better at doing conversations. Because I was off for 4 months, my buddy Pat was working from home, and then like the number of interaction we had were just us on the phone, and we just let's just record a conversation when we're together and put it out there, and then gave me the ability to like have a better podcast inside the field of fitness and like understanding like basically the idea of like how a therapist could think or bring an athlete back to the barbell, and having someone like you just saying like just being different or having different course or different concept learned from something else brings a lot more value than just learning about anatomy trains, applying anatomy trains, giving anatomy trains. It offers a bigger sandbox of information. There's no boundaries to that sandbox.
I think that's what's so cool, eh? Like the fact that you can have these like conversations and you never know where it's gonna go, the direction it's gonna take.
Oh yeah, and like at first I had a plan of like questions I want to ask to people, but I'm like, this is just applying a stupid technique all the time. Like this is not me getting better at conversation or learning about someone. I need to be able to have a free conversation about whatever and just ride this wave.
I think that's cool. And I found like me and Dalton have sort of like, because your podcast doesn't have to be the same now as it would be in like 2 or 3 years, like you can change. And that's like, we've definitely changed. Like we've evolved in the sense of like, because I agree, I like just like having conversations and having it be pretty free flowing. We've recently tried to create more of a story with our podcasts.
Yeah, I've seen the difference, man. It's cool.
Yeah, it's a bit different, like, but again, like that's something that's evolved over time, and we've learned so much from, because it's a different skill learning how to podcast,
100%. Especially on a computer on Zoom.
Yeah, no kidding. Like even just little things like, oh, you can actually wait a couple seconds with like silence.
Right. Oh, dude, that's something I've been trying to apply on a day-to-day activity with clients or conversation about like pain, just to formulate my ideas, and like the amount of success to deliver a message has been so much better compared to like when you're face to face. It just like keep going and you never think about it. But that skill of podcasting on Zoom gave me a better skill to apply.
Yeah, and I found storytelling and just like the power of, I don't know whether it's like conversation, like communication. Like that's been what has helped with my client interactions so much.
That's sick, man. That's cool. And then you could be able to link up, like breaking the ice with like your cat on your socks.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, okay, cool, having a conversation and knowing how your patient feels, and that's the beauty about it, right? Because you guys do a lot of stuff too, right? Not only from like the clinical standpoint, business standpoint, and also like podcasting standpoint?
Yeah, we are taking on a lot, and we have big plans in terms of like where we want to see things go, and like how we want the business to grow, and like all that fun stuff. But like the main priority right now is like how can we just keep this like space, seeing our clients in here, how can we get that to be the best we possibly can, so that when we hire new physios and stuff like that, they can carry on that same energy.
Mm-hmm. What's the hardest part, right? Because like this is, as business owners, it's trying to like create more time for you to create on other projects, right? So what's our stuff you're looking into for other physios or
In
other?
terms of like what would we look for if we like hired somebody?
Yeah.
Well, I should say like the hardest part about running a business is just the fact that like we we've never done it before.
Isn't it the weirdest thing owning a business? You're like, I don't
Yeah.
know what to do. I know muscles, insertion, origin.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's all these things that we have to understand now, like finances, marketing, right? Like um navigating COVID,
Yeah, that's a
dealing with like, customer service, right? Like you got to answer the phones. Like there's so many things, right? But I think with looking for somebody new, like with us, we want somebody who is not happy with how their job is, who wants something more,
taking
you know,
risk. Love
an
it.
opportunity to like see clients for an hour and really get the time to like dive deep, work with active people, um, and to explore like their creative side. Like we welcome that type of thinking. Like, how can we make this even more awesome? Like, what else do you want to do? Like that type of thing.
That's really cool, man. That's really cool because like as as I witnessed you and Dalton progress into what you guys have now, it's like it forced communication, trying to be better all the time. Not only as a therapist, but also as just a good dude. Because what can you offer if you're not a good dude, right?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's huge. Like it sounds funny, but it's like, yeah, you got to be like working on other aspects of your life. Like there's a lot of burnout in our professions, you know?
You
So
think it's so easy too, right? I believe.
yeah, definitely. Because like you just get in this trap of like, I've got to see people constantly back to back to back to back to back. It's like maybe there's a better way.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It's cool because I like this conversation where it's heading right now because it's all about like not it's all about doing less and
Mm-hmm.
trying to create something for yourself of like be less cookie cutter approach. I had a conversation with my buddy Liam from Ottawa, same size as me, has long hair, beautiful beard, and I'm like we're not stereotypical massage therapists here. Like I have dudes still thinking it's like a young girl, petite woman, 5'2", and blonde, and I'm like I'm as far left field as that as possible, right? And then it's cool to be able to create some sort of like non create some sort of empowerment for a client, but also for the community you're influencing too, right? Because it's all about not if you're doing too much in the clinical side of things, you're not helping your community as much. Which I
Yeah,
think you guys have it figured out with that.
we're figuring it out slowly, like and it's not easy because like it's just difficult in terms of like we'll have weeks where it's good, we're getting tons of people booking in, you know what I mean, but that takes away from time to work on other things. But then we're also in a transition period, where like uh the plan is at some point to expand the team, so it's like figuring out like how do we make sure we're putting steps in place so that we don't just get insanely busy, but we also want to build a business, right? So it's a tough balance. It's like not easy necessarily, but that's the goal, right? And as if that's the goal, then we try to figure out steps to do that. Where else can we add value in the community, right? Like, and we've already done some things. Like we did, we were basically gym teachers
Nice.
for like a like Montessori kind of school.
Yeah, yeah.
So we did their like healthy active living curriculum for like a high school Montessori school.
Nice.
So like that was like completely different in terms of how we were helping the community, but it gets you, into a different realm and you feel way less burnt out when you're doing stuff like that.
And it's creating momentum still for that goal, right? Of like finding different way to create to help the community.
Exactly.
Because I'm sure, like for you, after your big day, if you're seeing like a 40 patients in a day, and I'm sure you probably did, you come home and you just like don't want to talk to your partner. You're like, all right, I'm just out. I just want to be with my thoughts.
Yeah, and I'm already like that as a person. Like I'm pretty introverted. And so after I have a lot of like social activity, like I need to chill and like let things kind of sink in. And so I felt for me, it was even like I'm not necessarily your typical physio personality, like type A. I'm not type A at all.
Okay,
Uh,
cool.
so like I went through the phase of like seeing like I could see 20 clients a day and it was like 4 people an hour sometimes. And you're just like, man.
It's so it's so weird because I'm so happy you say that because I on Thursdays now I have a busier day. I'm a big extrovert type A, burn the bridge, whatever. There's someone's gonna build it back. I come home on Thursday and my partner just like knows that like don't disturb me for the next 2 hours
Yeah.
because I'm like a switch that's just gonna snap.
I think that stuff's so important to recognize though.
Right. I think it's like something that's getting more popular and popular with people like you guys at the forefront of it, of being like, hey, just chill the fuck out and just enjoy this route that you're on.
Yeah.
It's a
And
very important
enjoy like
message.
to recognize that, like if you're hiring people, like recognize like how they operate, right? Because like you want people to thrive over a long period of time, and like just grinding people out is not going to be conducive to that. And then they end up giving less quality care to the people that they're seeing.
Yeah,
It's like, why do we want that? Like why is that how we operate? And I think the answer is because it's easy.
yeah, and it's easy, right? Because it's instant gratification. You see 4 people an hour. Hey, bank account is going up.
Bank accounts going up for you, for the business. The insurance model is already set up that way to essentially reward that type of work, aka lower quality care.
And also lesser quality of life for the therapist.
Definitely, it's not set up to be fulfilling from a therapist standpoint at all.
And and that's like something that's like the amount of risk, right? Like I started and I've just listened to the big fan of the RX radio show because they're talking about risk lately. And I was same thing. Like I started my business 2019 in November, and I'm like, I'm 25. I could survive bankruptcy way better now because I have nothing than at 35 when I have a couple kids on the go or whatever. And and I have a lot of friends that came through that like classic model of 4 patients an hour, and they're like, yeah, I'm out of it. Like they went on and do something else. It's
Yeah,
cool that you guys realize that early on and be like offering better quality service and like, hey, we'll take that risk now.
for sure. That's the risk that we took, right? Because um insurance does cover what we're doing, but because we're operating at an hour, because we were like, what's going to be the best for our clients? We're just going to do that. We're not going to like just do what insurance will pay for, right? We just want to offer the best thing, but we didn't know like how that was going to fly, right? We not nothing to compare it to other than what they do in the US,
True.
but it's a completely different story here, right? And so it was like definitely risky, but easy because you have to actually learn to like prove your value, because people are going to have to pay something to see us unless they have like ridiculously awesome insurance coverage,
Yeah.
right? Like the majority of people are having to pay a little bit, a decent amount for our services, but we're seeing that it does. People do it. So, it's just not the easy route.
Do you think that like because you came from a background, you were in another clinic before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was that a similar model?
Not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah. I was seeing people 15 to 30 minutes,
Okay. So
and I
now,
had an assistant.
okay. So now bumping it into an hour without an assistant, it's like you're at bat, homie. What you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. It's different. Like, but luckily, like I had some placements where there was personal training
Nice.
involved, and personal training was so like, and I have a pretty like I do a lot of working out and stuff like that, so I understood like
Pump your own tires, man. Pump your own tires.
yeah,
You're a strong dude, man.
I'm a beast, right? So I
You have the beard for it,
knew
man.
how to fill that hour. Like, but that's tricky. Like, you're going from like, yeah, it's better. Like, there's less like time pressure, but it's different. It's like now you have to figure out how do I actually go through like a full session, you know?
Because you say hi to someone, talked about your beard and your socks, that's 15 minutes.
Exactly. At least, but then you got to fill those other 45 minutes.
Yeah. What are you going to talk? Right. And that, I think that's cool because it forces a better quality of care or a more authentic care. Because that was one thing for me when I was on the fence. I was a PT assistant and I was just like, I want to go to physio school, but I don't want to like, and then massage. And I was like, 6 years of school, a year and a half, took a year and a half. Came into the field, I'm like, oh, I'm seeing people minimum an hour or max an hour to like 45 minutes mostly. I was like, this is perfect. I could rant on something about their health, and there's going to be something that's going to stick instead of like being there for 15, 30 minutes and like, okay, cool. Hi, how's it going? Do this, do that. And then see you next week.
Yeah. And I find like the 15, 30 minutes, like it can work. You can deliver pretty quality care if you're really on, but like as soon as something goes wrong, that's where it's like you have that one person come in who's just having a horrible day and the plan goes out the window. And now you've got to adapt, but you're tired because you just saw 8 people in the last 2 hours. And now you've got to deal with someone who's having a flare up and didn't sleep well last night. And it's like, and then so you end up spending 45 minutes and then you've got 3 people waiting in the waiting room. It's like, that's where like I'm already sweating.
Take a towel, man.
Oh.
that must be so much more like how was that adaptation for you from like moving from like that model to like this model that you're offering now? Like must have been a long period of like adjustment of like, oh, I got an hour here, what do I do? Like you mentioned. So what's different in your treatment per se?
Well, I think there's a few things, right? Like I just have more time to spend on one client. Like, so like, I can prep for their session. So I'll spend like 20 to 30 minutes prepping because I can. And so the whole session's planned with like flexibility, right? Like usually you go off plan. It's just kind of how things go, but it's very much different in the sense of like, we're going to reassess, right? We're going to warm up. Like warm up is 5 to 10 minutes, right? Like this is like you're going to exercise or do whatever it is that you are having trouble with, right? So throughout that reassessment and warm up, you're getting a way better sense of like, where's this person at today? And then during the session, it's a lot more like, let's evaluate how you respond to given loading. And then we have time to have conversations about what to look for in terms of your response, what to look for in terms of like the discomfort that you're feeling. We have chances to like answer any question. Like we are not question dodging. We're here. We're going to ask you and we're going to deal with those ambiguous ideas because we've got the time. So that's like it. You might get through like we'll get through 5 to 6 exercises like throughout the session usually, but like we're getting through all 3 sets. We're getting or whatever if it's a different set scheme than 3 sets of 10. And you have your chance to like actually evaluate like how are you responding to this stimulus, right? Versus just like, okay, rip through a set, and hope that it goes well when they leave and go do it at home, right? Like, and it's just there's so many more things that come up like during that session. Like you have more time, and so there's more time for them to be like, oh, is this actually the way that I do it? And you're like, well, like, no, not at all, but normally you would just not have brought it up. You wouldn't have enough time. But when there's an hour session, like those things are going to pop your head and we're going to address it while you're here. That's what I've noticed. Just like, and the conversations get more detailed, like they get deeper because you're just with each other for longer. So you keep prodding and going into things and eventually that can of worms opens,
That's amazing, man. I like that so much. How does that influence your own training?
My own training?
Because like for those 15 to 30-minute treatment, you're going so fast through everything. Now you have an hour to think about movement with a patient, right? So like how did that influence your training for yourself from like thinking to like that output?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure if it has really changed it much. Yeah, I don't know if it has changed it much. Other than like how I deal with pain is a lot different.
Okay,
like,
cool.
Like my own pain. Because I just see like what can happen, right, with people. And so like I'm not like expecting things to feel perfect all the time. Like I'm okay with having aches and pains randomly, like that sort of thing.
Nice.
I don't think that relates too much to the hour though.
No, that's fair. It's just like for me, I recently started seeing a bit more like athletes and treating them. And also my training is very different than theirs, but it makes me think about more my training and if I'm doing something right or if I'm doing something wrong. And point of view, like I've recently started seeing a lot of bodybuilders. So it's like, okay, thinking about a hypertrophy standpoint of training, I'm like, oh, what hypertrophy? More than 5 reps? Like, what is this?
I see what you mean now. Like, and now I'm getting like a sense of what you're saying. And I would say that it has then, because I have to think about those details a lot more with people, just like, you know, what kind of rep scheme, are we getting close enough to like fatigue with things like
Okay, cool.
thinking about the tempos, like thinking about what energy system we're trying to address. Like all those things are definitely leaking into my training because
Nice.
I'm trying to experiment a lot more, because I'm having to do it with like this, like the variety of people that we see, you know, there's a lot of different people doing all kinds of things, you know?
Yeah, and especially like it's cool because like with the hour session now, you see different folks with different strokes, right? From different backgrounds, so you got to make sure you're able to offer something for them.
100%. Like I've been doing a lot more like gymnastics
Oh,
stuff, like even more like bodybuilding type training, you know, which I love working with bodybuilders and stuff too. So a good
they're
time.
so cool, eh?
Yeah.
Like the muscle tone on them, and it's just like you know the tissue works well.
Yeah. And if you could get a pump for a bodybuilder, like you're on their like team for life.
Oh yeah, and it's cool because it for me like last year with COVID, I didn't have my barbell in my garage, so I started running, and then a lot of folks are like, "Oh, Pat's a runner. He's a massage therapist. I'm gonna go see him because he understands what I do." So it's kind of interesting seeing different people coming in with different background, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna try this now because my client has this. So I want to understand them to another level."
Yeah, I agree. I've been looking into a lot more more so like last year, but I was looking into a lot more. Like I told you, I took Chris Johnson's course,
Yeah,
right? And it's so fun, like trying different training modalities and styles, I guess. Like and just appreciating how even like just how hard some of those things are. Like, man, lateral step downs,
dude, I know.
underrated exercise, you know,
It's
just like crushes your legs. And like, I never knew that until I started training like a runner.
and especially you're coming from a like a powerlifting background. You competed in
Yeah.
powerlifting, and you're like lateral step down.
Yeah, man. Like that, like things like that. And then like we're talking about bodybuilders, like the influence of very strict like tempo training, you know, like that's something I've really grown an appreciation for. Like, you know, rest periods being very strict. Like I'm used to being a power lifter, like rest periods. What do you mean rest period? Like I've like a 7-minute rest period between squats, right? So it's like,
How many Instagram posts you could go through?
yeah. Exactly. Like, but when you're trying to stimulate hypertrophy, you know, like you want to be pretty close to fatigue. And you also want to like make sure that each rep is reproduced the same, right? And throughout the full range of motion, or else you're not necessarily getting like those hypertrophy results as well. So that's like just a lot different.
And it's cool that you're able to apply like those concepts to your own training from seeing a client, right?
Yeah.
And then you're able, and I think that like I don't want to take more of your time because I know it's Monday for you. Um, it's cool that you're able to apply those concepts from creating an aspect, talking with the graphic designer. Now you're going with clients, you're like talking with them, and you're picking their brain, and then you're able to go in your own time training and applying those concepts again. And it makes you think, and like it creates a bit more value as a therapist because you're able to have those hard conversations and then think about it on your own after and reflect on that.
Yeah, you're right about that. Like we need time to like consolidate over sessions. And that's why like we're all about like trying to embody a healthy lifestyle. Like it's not like about trying to like be the epitome of health. Like I'm not like, you know, like I am stronger than the average person, but I'm not like, you wouldn't look at me and be like, wow, look at this guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but I practice this stuff and I spend time learning so that when I meet somebody who has a particular interest, I can relate on some level, you know? and I can help to like steer their rehab and in a particular direction, and give them confidence that like this isn't cookie cutter. This is like something that I've really put thought into, and I spend a lot of time thinking about these different domains outside of my treatment sessions.
I like that. Last question on your way out, man. Do you think it would be important to have those type of like different modalities in physio school, chiro school, or massage school, whatever, of exploring different sports or training methods? And so why?
I think in physio school, they should just have like literally training sessions
Cool.
where you're actually exercising. You know, just because like I think it sparks conversation in terms of like all these things that we've been talking about, right? Like how do different groups of people exercise? Like we're going to be, and how does that feel on the body? Like where do you feel that those loads are? What's the spectrum of loading on like the joints as you're, so like more just like explorative, you know, like we're all about helping people move and be mobile. So it's like, and exercise and coaching is a huge part of that. So I definitely think there should be like strength and conditioning class where you're working out, you're trying different things. You don't have to be the best at it. And you're also coaching, you know, you're just learning how to coach people.
Right. And I think that's the cherry on top of the sundae, right? Like being able to coach a skill to someone or understand this skill they're going through.
I think it should be like at first in school, it's literally just like you go in, there's programs, different types of skills and movements, and you go and you just do them and you talk amongst the classmates, right? And then it should steer into more coaching, cueing, programming, that type of thing, right? And then go into coupling those with actual rehab problems, you know, like, and not like it's too much like therapeutic exercise. Like this is just exercise. You're just applying it to a given context. And I think that's what's missing is like you need to just spend time exercising, spend time coaching, and now apply that to what you know about pain. And now suddenly you're a coach that can help people with pain navigate their issues through exercise, right?
Man, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much. That was so good. That was so well explained too. I'm like having chills, man. I'm like tearing up. This was like a poem.
I do what I can. You know, I hope it's helpful. Like, I definitely don't have all the answers with like what the best way to like set up schooling, but I do think that it's something missing, and we're not borrowing from other disciplines enough. You know,
And like
like
I feel like it's super important because like you're offering like if it's in a school system, like I'm not in a like I'm not a scholar either, but I think some sort of graded exposure is going to give us better therapists outside of school instead of like them having it 2 years of just hitting the books.
yeah, it's too in the schooling, it's too like, let's think of this weird exercise to do a certain thing. You know, it just doesn't fit cohesively into a good way to think about exercise and loading outside of school, I don't think.
Man, that was a doozy, man. Thank you so much for your hour, dude.
Thanks, man. That was fun. I'm glad you asked me to come on.
Dude, man, it was a doozy, man. I'm like I said to Dalton, I'm such a big fan of what you guys did, like starting the podcast from university and just trying to ask better questions. And now like you guys offer your service, your own space. I think it's so cool to see like the growth of what you guys did. And to now like can't wait to see what's next for you guys.
I really appreciate Pat. Like I said before, if you're ever you know, if we ever can have you down, we're definitely down. You should come by.
Oh, dude. it's something I want to do, man. Like I have a lot of people I want to hit up in the Toronto area from that last year of COVID and being able to network with other people. Like this is definitely a thing I want to get done and get in the GTAC. A lot of my friends, they're doing really cool shit, and witnessing the growth of like I found your podcast on Apple Podcasts one day, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna listen to those dudes. And those are questions I was asking myself through going through school, and now seeing where you guys at, I think it speaks a lot of volume. So I'll definitely make the stop.
Awesome, man.
Thank you so much, dude. Have a good day, dude.
Yeah, you too, brother.